Neil, welcome to the podcast. It's an honest pleasure to have you.
Mikey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Neil Tunnah is a trailblazer at the intersection of elite sports and business performance. As CEO of the performance chain and founder of the 24-hour leader program, Neil leverages decades of leadership experience and a passion for unlocking human potential to transform organizations worldwide. With a career spanning international markets from Australia to the US and the UK, he's built a reputation for blending authenticity, ambition, and results driven strategy. Neil's mission is bold to bridge the gap between sports excellence and business success by integrating high performance principles, innovation, and a relentless commitment to team empowerment. Under his leadership, the performance chain is redefining what's possible from leaders and teams, designing and delivering tailored programs that foster trust, resilience, and sustainable growth. Driven by a vision to make the global impact and a knack for building high performance, value led cultures, Neil is not only just shaping the future of leadership, he's inspiring others to achieve extraordinary results every day. Neil, that's awesome. So let's just dive right into it. First of all, how did you get
Yeah, awesome.
started in this industry, and why has your innovative approach solved problems that existed already?
Yeah, Mikey, I guess I've had probably in my career, I've had four lives. I've had a life in construction, everything from getting the hands dirty through to construction management and project management into high performance sports teams. I've worked across community sport and social sport as well, where there was some awesome learnings, and then finished up with professional sport probably about 12 months ago. And then we've been running the performance chain for the last 4 years. And we just recognized the opportunity to take some of what we'd learned in business into sport primarily. Recognized that some of the things we were doing in construction probably worked in sport. We tried it.
Mm.
Some of them worked, some of them didn't. We stuck with the ones that worked. And then through that period in sport as well, we learned, I think the biggest learning was the speed that sport moves at. So we started to get really curious about if sports run on a 7-day cycle, performance cycle, where you play on a Saturday or you play on a Sunday, and then you have to go back out the next Saturday again and effectively change the game plan and try and win again. We recognize that some of that bridged across into business as well. So we looked at it through a culture, leadership, team performance, and strategy lens, and started to move some of that stuff into business that's proven quite successful. The biggest one is probably the speed and some of the things that we have to
Mm.
do in relation to people. That's probably been the most impactful part, is how we can help businesses move faster by communicating better and communicating more, is probably the simplest way to put it.
Very, very interesting. Now, you mentioned that you've navigated both elite sports and high performance business environments. What was the biggest mindset shift you've had moving from the rugby field to the boardroom? And,
Yeah.
were you surprised by how like one set of principles and like the sports carries over beautifully to business?
Yeah, and this is probably the number one set of principles that I use and try to use now. Not only when we're working with other businesses, but in our own business as well. It's like it can be really complex. Things can be complex and difficult to understand. And I think whether that's strategy, whether that's operational role, whether it is in manufacturing technology, and listen, we're also walking into a world where AI is going to drive huge parts of what we do over the next few
Mm.
years. So the underlying principle is, how do we make the complex simple? So through that, we came up with a thing called the 3 Cs, which is just being clarity, consistency, and connections. So we focus really, really hard on creating clarity. We make sure that we are connected both on a social level and a performance level. We certainly believe that when there's social connection, performance level, performance culture has the opportunity to elevate beyond where it would be if it was just performance. All I mean by that, Mikey, is that we help teams build more care for each other. It's probably one of the ways to put it. So when you know each other better, when things are great, you celebrate it, but also
Right.
when they're maybe not going so well, you deal with it effectively and come together rather than pulling apart. And the last piece is, what do we have to be consistent with? Our people, from a leadership perspective, again, if you think about and all that, there's businesses in the US, mate, it's the best country in the world in terms of business because of the volume of business,
Mm,
but also the willingness to innovate and change and chase
mm.
new and try and understand how can they do things differently. It just moves at speed. So then when all of that is moving around, it's what do we
So it's
have to
like,
be consistent about?
sorry to cut you off, Neil. I just wonder,
Yeah,
is that like even potentially a source of frustration where the landscape is changing so fast that you can't even get married to any method, and you find something that works and it's already semi obsolete,
yeah,
and it's like this constant competitive need to innovate
yeah.
is beautiful, but can't it sometimes also be exhausting?
Well, and I think that's a really good point because if we take that principle of innovation and constant change into business, or we take it into sport and into business, then it can become very, very tiring. So the other piece around that is we need to be able to measure performance as well. So if
Mm,
it's constantly changing, how do we measure if whether it's effective or not? Or
right.
how do we start to build the data that allows us to predict even what might be successful that starts to drive decision making and action? So it's a really curious space, and you're absolutely right. I think I'll bring it back to people here. When there is constant change, it does become tiring for people. So I
Right.
think how do you create almost an operating model that focuses on certain principles and certain behaviors that has levels of, again, I'll chuck out typical words here from leadership, but agility and adaptability become really, really important. But people fundamentally need some kind of consistency to be
Mm,
able to understand whether they are performing or whether they're not performing, or what does great performance
right.
look like? What do we need to do to deliver that? So that's where that clarity and consistency and connection piece comes through really strongly.
Mm. So, Neil, what would you say your uniqueness factor is? And you mentioned that this is a competitive landscape. And what would you attribute to your success and why you're different than those around you?
Yeah, Mikey, we've had an interesting year because we've actually turned the way we do things completely on its head. So if you'd watched us deliver for clients, 12, 24 months ago, you'd see us probably delivering a typical L&D type framework. And again, I'll use the US as the example because I think you guys are just fundamentally underpinned by continuous development and learning all the way through your culture and society. UK is a little bit like that, and Australia is a little bit like that, but you guys are like that on steroids, which is awesome. It's really cool how you buy into that. So what we did was start to analyze the way we were setting up the learning environments, and we started to spend a lot of time with like Olympic skill acquisition coaches, sports
Mm,
psychologists, people who are deeply understand the process of human learning and how behavior sticks to that. And we flipped what we do on its head. So or I'm not saying we no longer, but we do much less of these fly in, fly out type learning environments where a business brings everyone to a central point. They get a day of, jazz hands from the performance chain where everyone walks out and they feel absolutely amazing. We call them sugar hits. Everyone walks out, feels absolutely amazing, but 2 days later are asking themselves, oh, what was that I learned 2 days ago and how's it
right.
relative to me? So we've
It's like a
changed the
feel
model.
good, but it's no long-term process.
Oh, it,
Yeah,
it doesn't support learning or retention of learning. Therefore, how can it support performance? So what we've
right.
done is completely reshaped
And
that
I
and
would
built
imagine like the things that make you feel good are almost inversely proportional to the things that actually are good for you, right? Like the
yeah,
things that suck and it's gritty and you're sweaty and you're gross and
yeah.
it's doesn't even like it's exhausting. Like those are the things that probably are that's where the gold is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an example. I was working with a team in Europe back in 2018. I remember walking out onto the training field on a wet, windy Tuesday morning, and it was literally 60-mile-an-hour winds, and we're trying to pass rugby balls and throw line outs, and I'm looking around the team and the staff, and I see what looks like misery. It looks like people are unhappy because they're out in it, but there are a couple of outliers in the group. I'm looking at big smiles on faces, being really intentional about what they do in that situation. And then there's no secret, it's no surprise that when that transfer to performance at the game in those conditions, the people who love the process and they love the grit, therefore it becomes transferable into under pressure decision making,
Right.
how you connect and interact with others, in terrible conditions, under extreme pressure. They they were the guys that were absolutely thriving in those conditions. So you're absolutely right. You've got to find pleasure in the difficulty as well.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
I think
And
it's crucial.
and I feel like the difference between a winner and someone who doesn't win is just so nuanced, and it comes down to like that warrior mindset. And to be honest, like would think that there's a world apart from someone who's a gym junkie who goes to the gym all day and someone who runs a successful business.
Yeah,
But I would argue that it's a very similar mindset. And there's a certain sense of respect that I give to someone who looks like they're in great shape, because it
yeah,
tells me that they've got discipline. It tells me that they're willing to put a ton of effort. They're willing to fight their mind and, avoid eating
absolutely.
unhealthy foods or whatnot. And I feel like when you're competing at such a high level of athleticism, at some point, it's like both people are super athletic, but
Yeah,
the one that gets the edge is probably the one that's got a certain mindset that is
yeah,
capable of enduring an insane amount of pressure. And
yeah.
even that sort of mindset, I would imagine, scopes beyond the specific sport or the athletic domain itself. It trickles down into
Absolutely.
their life in general.
Absolutely. And listen, that's well, and again, I'm biased because I've lived in both worlds, but when we're recruiting into our business now, we definitely look for a set of characteristics before we
Mm,
look for competency, and those characteristics they align with things like grit. What do you do when the pressure gets hard? Do you
mm,
look after yourself physically? Do you sleep well? Do you think about these things? Do you think about how it influences and impacts how you show up at key moments in your life? And I mean that from a holistic perspective as well, is how do you show up in key moments in life at home
right,
impacts how you show up at key moments in life at work as well. So,
right.
and listen, one of the beautiful things for us is we've been able to take a lot of that stuff as well into business and start to help
Mm,
business understand that when people look after themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, inside and outside of work, then it impacts the way you show up all the time. And like,
right.
it's easy in the good moments. It's what do people do in the hard moments. That's where you see true character, isn't it?
Yeah. You're not just building athletes, you're building life warriors, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's the mindset piece. And look, we're really fortunate. We've got some wonderful people in and around the business now that help us with that, and they're all highly motivated to give and help people gain access to the
Mm,
kind of information that allows them and helps them to make good decisions in that
right.
space.
And I feel like the space is only going to get way more competitive with the advancements of technology, AI, where data sets are going to exist that didn't exist before, the
Yeah,
ability to micro analyze performances. You can
yeah,
get insane data sets that you can punch through AI systems. Where
yeah.
do you see this industry heading in the next decade?
I think that's an awesome question. I had a conversation with a guy who's involved in a business out of Denver. He's a CRO in a business, and we were speaking about um, I guess the American thirst for data, which
Mm,
you guys absolutely love having all the data, the ability to read the data, the ability to try and understand it. And I threw something at him around back to this making the complex simple. Back to that principle is what's the data that really matters?
that's a
So
million dollar question.
the
Yeah,
ability to look at it all and go, this is the part that matters,
right.
and then be
Because
able to transfer that
yeah,
information and help it drive performance.
yeah, because more data isn't necessarily better. It can just constitute to noise, right?
The right
It's
data is what's
it's the
important.
right data, and
Yeah,
yeah, well, that's interesting, and that can
yeah,
get a little philosophical, I imagine, as in
yeah,
like what?
absolutely,
Yeah, it is,
absolutely.
and it's not just even the data can seem right, but it's about finding the right system where it's like like it's about finding the right system where that data actually matters. Like it's and what's like there was like this movie I saw once with this kid who was predicting like baseball championships and odds and calculating the chances and how to
Yeah,
develop and draft the perfect team. I forgot the name of the movie, but it
it's
almost seemed
Moneyball.
like, sorry?
It's Moneyball, the Brad Pitt
Moneyball,
movie.
yes, yes, great
Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
And it's like it's so counterintuitive. It's like the data points almost seem stupid where everyone would dismiss them, but it's like he found the right system where, it's the data. It's not the data itself. The data is good, but it needs to be plugged into the right system. And sometimes that is super counterintuitive.
Has to drive action. So it has to
Yeah.
drive action. If there's so much that is making you stand still, then there's too much.
Right.
If you're looking at the wrong data, wondering what to do with it, then again you're standing still. So
Mm.
if we want to use data to drive performance, I think we've got to, and something we've learned over time again in sport is I would look at I'd use Pareto's law. So I'd look at all the data, but I'm looking for the biggest influencers, and I'm looking for the minimum number of biggest influencers. So what are the 2 or 3 things that can impact the 80%?
Mm.
And I think as leaders, it's our job to clear the water for operational performance or operational excellence. And again, I mean that from a human perspective, so that when people need to execute the role, they're encouraged to think and problem solve and challenge themselves, but they've got real clarity on this is what I need to do, this is when I need to do it, and this is how I'm going to do it. They then got the opportunity to reflect and review consistently, but they can be really clear on the process.
Mm.
I think outside of that, if there's too much and it's the wrong stuff, it creates confusion and slows us down.
Right. Right. I'd like to focus on Neil for just a second. So, just by looking into your background, it seems like you've thrown yourself into various industries. Why do you think that is? I mean, it sounds like you mentioned like landscaping and construction, and here you are dealing with like sports and athlete optimization. What do you think that says about yourself?
Well, I can tell you straight away what it told me about myself from about the ages of 18 to 30 is I didn't have a clue who I was. So
Mm.
I was exploring. I didn't conform to the you got to come out of school and go into further education, and
Right.
you got to go and study a degree that then puts you in a job when you're 22 so that you can buy a house, and then
Did you
you know
study in
you
college or did you skip right through it?
I studied construction in college,
Mm.
and then I came out of construction into construction management. I studied construction management alongside executing a role in
How did
construction
you tap
management.
into such a technical industry? That's crazy. Like construction is very like hands-on, and it sounds like what you do is just very strategic.
Yeah, it was at the time, but I think that's my journey. I mean, I grew up in a country town in the Scottish borders where,
Mm.
there was probably 25 or 30%, and that's maybe being unfair. There's maybe 40% maybe went to university. And then it was a country town, so there's lots of people who are becoming electricians and plumbers and carpenters
Mm.
and bricklayers and farmers and factory workers. So I got caught in that cycle of, well, that's what everyone else is doing. I want to earn money and I want to be able to socialize and spend time
Yeah.
with my friends. And so that drove that early stages for me. It wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do, but I guess in a sense, I was going with the flow.
Mm.
Um, but that changed in my 20s, and I moved away from the small town. I moved to the city, and I started to sort of start to get more curious about who I was and what I actually stood for. And then I came to Australia in 2010, and that's where I fell
Very
into
cool.
coaching and then high level coaching, and that helped me work out what I really stood for and what I was all about.
Yeah, you seem like the kind of guy that you can take everything away, throw him on an island, and he'll figure his way out again.
Well, I'm not sure you have an option because if you don't figure it out, you're just going to shrivel up and disappear, aren't you?
Right, right. You either innovate or perish. And what you're saying
Yeah,
is 100% right. And here's the thing. College made sense 40, 50 years ago, right?
yeah,
You know, the economy was what it was. It was a slow grinding system.
hmm
And you would see, hey, what jobs pay the best? You'd study in college for 3, 4 years. You'd specialize in
yeah,
a set of skills, and that would make sense. You'd master a craft, and that's how you'd get a good job. But the
yeah,
problem is our economic landscape is moving so quickly because that rate of growth from technology is exponential. It's defined by Moore's law. We are
yeah,
doubling the speed of a computer every 24 months. Now,
yeah,
that problem with that is that you diminishes that predictive power, your ability to say, hey, this is going to be a good field, or the field is going to be like this in 10 years is a
yeah,
diminishing process. It's a fleeting ability to project. So
yeah,
having skills that are malleable, having a mindset that's able to adjust quickly to a changing environment is absolutely crucial. And I feel like
hmm
something like COVID, I know you keep bringing up COVID, but something like COVID is a great stress test because
absolutely.
a lot of structures were, and it was a stress test, but it was also revelation, because it
Yeah,
was a stress test because we were forced to realize, hey, how quickly can we adapt? And it was a revelation because we realized some of these bureaucratic structures we thought were valuable, coming every day to work with a suit and a tie, and
yeah,
it was like, that's what creates performance. Working from home is a horrible idea, and then companies are like, whoa, we can cut costs like crazy.
yeah.
People are happier because they're working at home and they're with their family, and performance is
Hmm.
going up. And it's like, oh wow, like these some of these structures are meant to die, right?
Yep, yep.
And
History tells
yeah,
us
and
that.
it
History tells us that. And
exactly.
I'll give you a really rudimentary example. If you'd walked through communities in 1850, you would have seen tradesmen and farmers and people working with their hands, very much hand orientated. And then mechanical came along, and there was a shift and change. People adapted and changed the way they were earning a living and providing for their family. That the same is absolutely happening again right now. It's a reshift and a reshape of the
Mm,
way the world. I would call it, and I had this discussion this morning with a colleague in the US. It's the architecture of the work environment is actually changing, and look, we can push back and try and stop it, but everything in history tells us
right.
we're trying to hold back a tsunami. So instead of trying to hold back the tsunami, why don't we try and work out how it can benefit us? How do we harness it?
Weaponize it,
Yeah,
100%.
and make the most of it. And look, I think I've got two kids, Mikey. I've got a 12-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old daughter, and we talk a lot about what do you want to do when you grow up, and they're absolutely mad on the performing arts. But every time I ask that or we talk about that, I'm really conscious that probably, and there will be data out there. There's probably something like double-digit percentage of jobs that are being done now. The job may not even have existed 10 years ago.
Right.
So if we think about the period we're about to go through in terms of change and the speed of change because of
You're
AI,
saying like AI is going to replace those sort of arts-based jobs.
well, no, I don't think it will replace. I think it will reshape.
Huh.
So I think what we'll
Right.
find is there's an opportunity for humans to do more of what humans are great at, and I'll go at things
Correct.
like building trust, strategic thinking, human connection. How can I understand my people and my clients at a much
Right.
deeper level? I've got time to spend on that, while all of the stuff in the background can, or not all the stuff, but a lot of the stuff can be automated through
Right.
agentic AI that frees me up to do. And we would talk about this a lot in sport.
Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
a team I walked in. What are your super strengths? So we can literally plot what people are brilliant at, and then work out how to get them do more of it.
Mm,
And that doesn't mean there's no space for your data driven people that love spreadsheets, data entry, working out trends, and all that kind of stuff. But maybe we can give them the information at a level where they can start to analyze at a strategic level faster, therefore
yeah.
make decisions faster.
Yeah.
And then I
Well
see I
said.
see opportunity for growth in business in that sense, rather than constriction. I see opportunity for growth.
Yeah. If you think of like natural language processors like ChatGPT, they're just a collection of data, and you're getting a really good B plus PhD student at your disposal, at your like
Hmm.
at your side whenever you need.
Yeah,
But that's exactly right. Like you want to wake up every morning and look in the mirror and say, what is exceptionally unique about myself that can't be replicated,
yeah,
and what can be patternized and delegated?
yeah,
And it's not like a one-time thing. It's a constant iterative and recursive process. And
absolutely.
this is where GPT is amazing for those who are above the curve, who do have an element of uniqueness. If tool is weaponized and used correctly, it allows you to do more, or way more, like you said so nicely. It allows you to do way more of what makes you unique.
Yeah,
And for those who don't have a uniqueness factor, for those who are kind of just trying to get through, don't
hmm,
have a passion for what they do, it's just a means to an end. Those are the people, irrespective of industry, those are the people
yeah,
who are most threatened by AI.
yeah,
Exactly, and I completely agree. And it's a certain, even like in the tech industry, or it's like you cannot get married to any process, because this system, this environment, this landscape is shifting so quickly. It's
it's
almost
always changing.
frustrating. You learn a new
Yeah,
computer language, you learn a new system, and it's like boom, it's already like, oh, you got
yeah,
to move on to the next one. Oh man, ChatGPT has an update. You're like, fuck, how do I have to,
yeah,
like, what of my competitors are going to use this advantage? I have to go back to, like, retest all these tools and find out, what I can
that's
do
it.
more with. Yeah, it's an endless process. It's
I
exhausting,
think
but it's beautiful at the same time.
it is, and I think you touched on something like that really strikes a chord with me as well, Mikey. Because like I'm an optimist, and I'm quite happy to tell you that I'm an optimist. So, and I've got a bit of entrepreneurial spirit as well. I think so. I look for the good in things. So I'm looking for ways to harness and improve and enhance. So you said something there about people who are just getting by and just want to effectively go punch in, punch out, and go home. I would counter that with, I wonder if anyone's taught them how to work out what they're passionate about. I wonder if anyone's spent time with them to work out what they're good at, and therefore how
Mm.
do they harness that? Because I'll go back and I'm going to put my head above the parapet here. The education system in the Western world. I don't know about you, Mikey, but if I was to pull my school reports out from the age of 10 to 18, I guarantee every single one of them would say Neil needs to be better.
Oh yeah.
Neil could do whatever he wanted to do if he just applied himself. Neil needs to work harder on this subject. I can't remember ever having a school report where my parents came home and told me the school have told us that you are outstanding at this. I can't remember that ever happening.
Yeah.
So there's a
Because
paradigm shift in society in our approach to discovering what people are good at, teaching them how to harness it, and then how that can, I guess, support
yeah.
them having a better life than they have right now.
The schooling system is a complicated conversation because, of course, we can define flaws in this bureaucratic system. But the question I always ask people is, okay, what would you propose better? What would you propose be the solution? Look, how would you group people, right? And you're 100% right because, as a kid, you might have failed in everything. And for me, I was the poster boy for ADHD. I
Yep.
was given private tutoring in math. I was given private tutoring in English. I spent a lot of
Yep.
my time writing today. I majored in math and computer science.
Right.
There's an irony to it, but it's not, it's because when you're in elementary school, you're rewarded for discipline, structure,
Yep.
and organization and fitting the mold, which is not a horrible
Hmm.
thing. But I'm saying if you can walk in a straight line and you can follow the rules, you'll do very well and you'll be rewarded.
Yep.
And as you grow along that curve and you start heading into high school and college, you're rewarded more for innovation,
Hmm.
for critical thinking, for thinking outside the box. And then you're in your
Yep.
PhD, you have a thesis, you got to think of something that, that's unique.
Yep.
And some of the qualities that you were punished for as a kid are your most valuable qualities you took with you getting older.
Yep.
You realize you're not, the well-worn path is not the best path for you. And you've found a way to, the fact that you can move across disciplines tells me how you're agile, tells me how you don't get locked in a system that appears to work, tells me how you can adjust to the times really quickly. And you mentioned something like that you responded to my point about someone, just clocking in and out and doing the 9 to 5. Here's the thing, Neil. Here's how I see it. It's not necessarily a good or a bad thing.
Yep.
The entrepreneurial pursuit to many is a horrible transaction. You're
Yep.
getting paid radically less, you're working radically more, and you really have to have a scope you have to have a high pain tolerance, a high risk tolerance, and you have to have a really high scope of vision saying, hey, I'm subscribing to a curve that's not linear, that's exponential, but it'll
Yep.
take me 5 years to hit that inflection point to where I become profitable or I see the fruits
Yep.
to my work.
Absolutely.
And it's not always a better thing. That's the truth. So if someone it
Totally
comes
agree.
down to what you're happy with. And if someone is happy working a 9 to 5, the joke's on us, like to some extent. And it
Mikey, I couldn't
ultimately,
agree more. I could not
yeah,
agree more.
it
Yeah.
ultimately comes down to what makes you happy. And you can't change that. Like you wake up every day and you look at yourself and you're like, I would never do this. I would never do the 9 to 5. It would
Yep.
make me miserable. It's an illusion of choice.
Yep.
You are genetically wired and predisposed to waking up every day and having those neurons in your brain fire and say, this is what I'm doing and I absolutely love it. And anything else would be
Absolutely.
horrible.
Absolutely. Mate, I think you've just raised the most important point in society right now. What I'm countering you with is I don't think we've educated people to the point where they know if they're happy or not. So I think what you're talking about there, mate, the society should and has the ability for everyone right now to find a way to fit. The problem is we don't always try and fit people in a way that makes them happy or works for
Mm.
them. So when I come back to and again, I don't want to sound like I'm jumping on a soapbox with or got an organ to grind here, but I think when we come through the schooling system, we have key development stages in our life around our brain primarily that if you look at those ages of sort of 5 to 13, 14, the early adolescent stages, if you have consistently been told that you are not good enough, and listen, that's probably the extreme of it. Let's go completely neutral. You've never been told whether you're good or not good. How have you learned how to explore what you enjoy
Right.
without just stumbling across it? So again, I wonder if the
Right.
system could be setting us up at an earlier stage to be curious about what we might be rather than being told what we should be.
Right.
And that's a piece that interests me because I completely agree with you. The entrepreneurial lifestyle, it's not for everyone. It's hard. And you used an analogy there. I'd use the iceberg effect. Everyone thinks that you get success and it's the bit that pops above the water and that's all you've done. No one looks at the 20 years of graft that you've put in under the water. You know,
Right.
it's the old duck on a water effect. The legs are going like mad under the water and you're cruising along the top at that stage. And
Right.
I just think
You
it's
only get recognized once it's glamorous, but the people who
yeah,
get there realize, like, we all want success. We all want that glamour. The real
yeah,
question, that's not the important question. The question is, what are you willing to give up to get it? Right?
yeah,
Even as an
absolutely.
athlete, like, we all want to, make it to
Yeah,
NFL, to the NBA, but and you see those guys, oh, it's almost like as if they're lucky. There might be some element of luck, sure, but a lot of it is giving up so much to get there. And you don't even realize some of these people give up their personal life and they give up all the fun. And sure,
yeah,
you want to be in the NBA, but are you willing to give up partying over the weekend? Are you willing
yeah,
to give up, what you don't have the perfect lifestyle. You've got to pay your rent, right?
yeah,
You got to work a nine to
yeah,
five. Are you willing to give up every 5 to midnight honing on a new
yeah,
craft, a new set of skills? That's the real
yep,
question. What are you willing to give up to get it? And
yeah,
real success, like you mentioned in our conversation earlier, is not just about playing a specific sport really, really well. Like, finding success as an entrepreneur is not just making money, right? If you're unhealthy, if you're overweight, um, if you're not feeling that you're living your best life, if you're not having a quality life with those around you where you feel
yeah.
motivated and happy, everything falls to the wayside, and your specific craft just becomes so much more difficult.
Absolutely, and that's. I'll tell you a quick story here, Mikey. So I was sitting in Los Angeles airport, I reckon, back in 2022, and I was on an early morning flight. So I was sitting. I'm going to say I was sitting in a bar, but I was having a coffee and a water. It's about 6:30 in the morning, and there's a couple of guys. And mate, they're probably somewhere between 300 and 400 pounds each. They're in suits and ties, and they rock up and they sit at the bar opposite me, and they order Bloody Marys and cheeseburgers for breakfast. And
Crazy.
they're clearly going for work. They're clearly going to work. They're dressed suits and ties, and
Yeah.
you start to listen to them, and they're talking about their day, and like I start. And again, this is a little bit around my obsessive mind kicks in, where I'm starting to unpack. Well, I wonder what's going on in their life or hasn't gone in their life that makes them think that sitting at a bar at 7 o'clock in the morning on their way to work is the right time to have a Bloody Mary with a double shot and a cheeseburger. How do they think that
Crazy.
serves them well at 11
Crazy.
o'clock in the morning? It's lack of education.
It's
Um,
it's lack of childhood values and
mhm.
values that are inculcated from day one. Yeah, I mean, I don't even eat processed sugar. I haven't touched that in 2 years. I
Brilliant,
fast 18 to
brilliant.
20 hours a day.
Yeah,
And, like, if you look at some of the, and you mentioned that you were at the LAX, is exactly the point. Well, the second you hit into the US, the second you're in the US, you realize, like, that's one thing. And it's not even that. Here's the thing. It's like, if you look at the American diet, a lot of the stuff is just heavily sugar based.
yep,
And it's not even that you're eating sugar and you're doing something wrong. It's one degree of freedom deeper than that, where you have the false sense that you're eating something healthy. You're like, oh, a
yep,
granola bar is healthy.
yeah,
And you don't realize how, it's like, everything is full of processed sugar.
hmm,
And you think that you're punishing yourself and you're having discipline by eating things that are just as bad as than having a bowl of cereal.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and
yeah,
it's a very hard thing to understand when you watch someone have, like, a cheeseburger for breakfast, or have, like, even like a cup of coffee. It's got like 40 grams of sugar.
yeah,
That's like 75% of your daily sugar intake right
yeah.
there.
It's insane.
Uh, It's absolutely insane. It makes no sense to me. What's the point of making money working a third of your life away when you're going to have diabetes at 45, 50,
That's
and
exactly
you're
right.
overweight and you don't feel confident and you don't love
Yep.
yourself? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and exactly it. Like, I see someone who goes to the gym every day, right? And I'm like,
Hmm.
that's someone who knows what it means to work really, really hard at something. And it tells
Yep.
me a story about them. It tells me that they're really good at this, they're probably really good at that, and they're probably
Hmm.
really good at other stuff, and they're probably really good at their career as well.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. It's
exactly.
the
Like the mindset
structure,
does.
discipline, all of those things that you see, resilient structure, discipline. And that's one of the things I would say, Mikey, that sport really taught me um, in the early days was how important structure is. And
Mm,
if you can find a structure and build a structure that works for you, and then you can follow process around that structure, then as long as you're willing to adapt and be agile and things twist and turn, so you've got to have a degree of humility, I think, in there as well. But if you can get that right, then you can lead yourself to getting better outcomes. If you're someone that wakes up in the morning and makes it up on the run and you go to, I'm going to go to the gym today, and then you wake up the next day and you're in that hole and you're like, oh, I just don't feel, I'm tired after yesterday. And then you find yourself sitting around at
right.
lunchtime and you might be, oh yeah, I'll jump on and do a little bit of work on my laptop. Like suddenly you're going to be a Saturday and you're looking back, you go, what did I actually do this week?
Yeah.
So I
But
think,
eventually, some of us come to the realization that that's not the easier route. Like for me, here's an example. I used to run every day 3 miles just to keep my weight. Like the moment I would stop running, I would just bounce up 10 pounds.
yeah,
And it's unsustainable. I had to like try different things, and it's not about you. Anytime someone gives you information, you have to take it through a lens, and you
yeah,
look at it, and you apply it to your lifestyle. But it's about this rigor and this just persistence of finding a system that works for you. And I fast 18 hours a day, a minimum, right?
yeah,
And some people
right.
tell me, "Oh, Mikey, that's so hard. Why do you even bother doing that?" My answer to them is, it is so much easier doing this than living with myself when I'm 15
Yeah.
pounds more.
Well,
So some of us come to that realization that the discipline is not the harder route. It's the easier
yeah,
route. It's
I
the
think
easier route.
the other thing is, like, yeah, I think your norm becomes your norm. So you're
Yeah.
telling me you don't eat for 18 hours a day. There'll be some people that are sitting listening to that going, far out, you must be absolutely starving by the time you get to hour 6 or 7. Are you not just running for the cupboards and
No.
snacking and you like what you've done for yourself is you've framed it up in a way that if I do this, this benefits me. So
Mm.
straight away, you've gone to the psychology of it. You're understanding the benefit, which underpins the discipline. And then once you've done it for 4 or 5 days, it becomes your norm.
Right. And it's
You,
a
you
slow
get,
grinding process. So I
yeah.
like to subscribe to a system called progressive extremism, where
Hmm.
you take on these tiny, tiny commitments that almost seem trivial,
Yep.
and you adapt them to exactly how you said as a natural part of your life.
Yeah.
Where you don't take these New Year's resolutions where you do something that's unrealistic for 3 weeks and then you bounce right back to your natural state.
Yeah.
And you don't like there's no long-term benefit.
Yeah.
Rather
Yeah.
than integrating these tiny commitments that almost seem super simple to keep, and you make them a part of your life, and then you inch
Yeah. Yeah.
forward, and before you know it, you've taken on a whole big change. For
Yeah.
example, like cutting sugar out, right? You can
Yeah.
say cutting sugar is really hard. You can make this weird rule that you just don't drink Coke in the house,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then that's it. You just want to drink Coke, you go outside. And then doing that for 3, 4, 5 months, making these tiny new commitments, you've made serious change in your life.
Yeah.
And I think
That's
that's slow and steady wins the race, as they say.
could not agree more. I was in the US for a trip last year and I came home and I got myself a coach, and he's a guy that I coached rugby in Europe a while back. And his name's, I'll give him a shout out here, Josh Bainbridge, because he changed my life completely. And we sort of formed some new habits, changed some new habits, influenced decision making. It was all underpinned by, and for me, it's what kind of example do I want to be for my children, and that drives the behavior. But he consistently says something to me that you will never, under pressure, you will never rise to the level of your ceiling. You will always fall to the level of your floor. So you've got to keep raising the floor. You've got to keep working on raising that floor so that your basic habits are the habits that serve you
Mm,
well when you fall. And
I
it
love
just
that.
sticks with me consistently. And it's, those little triggers, you touched on it, habit stacking. My day, I'm an infinitely better human being if I get up and train at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Mm,
So part of my process to get myself out of the door and train is I have my hydration beside the bed. every night. So when I roll over and go, do you know what? Maybe I won't today. I see my hydration and I go, hang on, just hydrate and then see how you feel. By that time, I'm sitting on the edge of the bed. I've drank half a litre of water with hydrolyte in it. And I'm going, well, why would I get back in bed now? I'm up. Let's go. Off to the gym.
Mm.
And then the whole day stacks on top of that. That's when your scheduling, your routine kicks in and it flows through. And you're 6 months into that and you see it delivering some success for you. And it's rewarding. It feels good.
Neil, you have a brilliant mind. I feel like I can talk to you for hours. Unfortunately, we're 15 minutes. We're 40 minutes in now. We're way over the clock, and I unfortunately it is 10:30, and I really need to put
Yeah.
some food in my mouth because, or else I'm going to be really hungry tomorrow. But Neil, like you've got a beautiful mind. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and someone like yourself who we can talk about the abstract concept about what you do. We don't have to talk necessarily about sports itself. We can translate to a bigger philosophy in life. It tells me a lot about who you are as a person. And I appreciate your nimbleness, your agility, your ability to move around so beautifully in what you do. We should definitely do this again. And it was an honest pleasure.
Mikey, thanks so much. I've really enjoyed it, and likewise,
Yeah.
I could speak to you all day. There's some,
Yeah.
just awesome conversations. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a
I look
pleasure.
forward to
How
the
can
next
people
time.
get in touch with you?
LinkedIn's probably the best way. So just look for Neil Tunnah on LinkedIn. We've got the website as well, theperformancechain.com. It's probably one of my big work-ons is to be, I guess, a little bit more individual brand focused through things like Instagram, but I'm pretty happy with where I am. I just need to be a little bit better at that exposure, but certainly LinkedIn, if people want to have a chat or
Absolutely amazing.
reach out with any challenges, happy to help.
Thank you for your time, Neil.
Thanks, Mikey. Appreciate it. Speak soon.